welcome to our webinar today, 7 Secrets to a Successful PPC Campaign. If this is your first time joining one of LOCALiQ's webinars, welcome and allow me to introduce you to LOCALiQ. We are a multi-channel digital marketing agency that specializes in local marketing. And our digital marketing specialists help hundreds of businesses every day with their SEO, search engine optimization, PPC, pay-per-click advertising strategies, paid social, display advertising, website design, and so much more. So rest assured you are in great hands today. Here is our agenda for today's session. We're going to cover essentially 2 sections in today's presentation. One is a very brief, quick section where we're going to talk about the current state of this whole search industry, search sector when it comes to search engine advertising. There's been a lot of change, especially over the last year or so. We're going to talk about where things are. And then the second phase of today's webinar session is where we're going to break down the 7 secrets to a successful PPC campaign. And so to help us with that presentation, we've got a good colleague of mine, Jake Cox, from the US division of LOCALiQ, so from across the pond there, and he's going to be breaking down these 7 secrets that we need to know and that we all can implement to have a successful PPC campaign. Jake, thanks for hopping on very early in your morning. If you will, just tell our audience a little bit more about yourself and your role within LOCALiQ and just this space in general.
For sure. Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate you guys having me on bright and early from over here in the States. So my name is Jake Cox. Like Brandon said, I'm based right outside of Boston. My role is product manager, and I oversee our search engine marketing family of products. So anything from Google advertising, Bing advertising, all the way through to some additional publisher testing with things like Performance Max and some other Google products as well. So my role is essentially to work with our development team, work with our sales services and end clients to really make sure that the search engine marketing solution that we're providing ultimately drives the most possible leads or conversions at the lowest possible cost for our clients. So thankful to be on here and looking forward to digging in.
Cool, awesome. Thanks, Jake. And I'm Brandon Griffin. I'm the interim marketing director for LOCALiQ. And just a few housekeeping things. Today's webinar is being recorded, and so you have, so you don't have to, feverishly take notes for today's session because you'll get the webinar recording as well as the slides sent to you after our session today. So we'll make sure you receive that within 24 hours. As well as if you have any questions, we're going to be covering a lot today, trying to cover as much as we can over the next 40 minutes or so. So if you have questions, feel free to go to that same area where you just introduced yourself and post your questions there. We've got some colleagues in the background that are going to be answering some of the questions live, and hopefully we'll be able to answer 1 or 2 towards the end in a Q&A segment. Awesome. So with those things mentioned, let's go ahead and get started here. So I think the first part, Jake, we're going to just go into and talk about the current state of search and what's happening. I mean, what should we know about what's happening in this space across the board?
Yeah, so let's dig in. So I really wanted to start, again, very high level, give you guys a quick lay of the land of what's going on within the search industry. So this will be a combination of some data pulled specific to the UK, as well as some sort of current events, so you guys can get the big picture. And then from there, we'll weave this into really giving you guys some tips to best optimize your campaign or best even set up your campaign in today's current environment. So starting off here, so this is really, again, just big picture of all the players that are currently within the search space. So as you can kind of see on the left-hand side here, Google really continues to reign supreme in UK and abroad. So right now they're demanding almost 95% of the overall search market share. And something to mention, I mean, market dominance at this scale is really almost unprecedented. So for instance, if you're to compare market share across, for instance, social media sites, the top player in that space, which is Facebook, sits at around 60% of the total market share. So again, comparing that with what we're seeing in search, it is truly unprecedented. So if you're following Google, there are some additional competitors in there. So the next three on the list here are available via the Microsoft ad platform. So those are sites like Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, accounting for roughly 5% of the market share. So again, very far trailing Google in their wake, but those are some additional that are showing up on the list here as well. So if we want to go over the next slide here. All right, and then this is showing paid search ad spend over time. So you can see the consistent growth really over the last 10, 15 years. But if you zoom in on the last 3 or 4 years, really post-COVID, that's where you see the biggest jump. So from 2020 to 2021, we really started seeing kind of that exponential growth. And if you're looking at Google ad spend alone, which again is really the key player in the search space, the revenues coming specifically from Google ads jumped by almost 12% year over year in 2023 alone. So that really shows the volume of ad spend that they're delivering through their platform, and it's really showing no signs of slowing down. If you look at just the overall sheer value of advertising spend through Google, we were looking at close to 15 billion pounds were spent again alone on Google ads last year. Next slide here. And so with that, as ad costs continue to rise, continue to surge, that ultimately means more competition in the market. So what you tend to see as a result of that increased competition is the increased cost that ends up getting passed down to the advertiser, which especially in cases where you may be a small to medium sized business, you may not have a massive ad budget to compete with these huge competitors in the space. That creates some challenges from a budgeting perspective. So you can kind of see on the right hand side a couple of metrics that we have seen consistently up year over year. So looking at things like CPC, which is cost per click, that's up about 10%, and then cost per lead, ultimately, which what you're charging to deliver a lead, is up by about 25%. So again, significant increases from what we're seeing because of that increased competition in the space, and with with a bulk of ad spend overall headed in Google's direction, the cost inflation that we're seeing at this publisher again can really pose some significant challenges if advertisers don't have a specific diversification plan in place.
Yeah, and Jake, I mean, we're seeing a lot in the news related to Google. Can you tell us like what that news and noise is about, and
For
why we
sure.
should be, why it makes sense for businesses to be mindful of what's happening?
Yeah, and so this news story really, kind of falls in line with just the precipitous growth that we've seen and the dominance that we've seen from Google. So because of that unprecedented dominance, again, 95% market share, Google is being faced with a lot of litigation as it relates to sort of monopolistic practices. And here are just a couple of examples of specific areas where they're facing some pressure. So for those of you that aren't aware, Google has a couple of different ad platforms. So they have their ad exchange where they sort of plug in with publishers and news sites, and then they also have Google Ads, which is their that's where you'll run your search campaigns out of. And so what they've been doing, or what they've been accused of doing, is really giving some preferential access to those, as we call, double dippers. So people that are participating in both the ad exchange and the ad platform, they're giving them essentially a little bit of a bump and preferred access when they are running their ads at auction, which clearly is a no-no. They're also they're basically manipulating bids for again those double dipper type advertisers. So these are just a couple of quick examples of some of the litigation that they've faced within the UK. But again, they're facing a ton of pressure nationwide as well, just for general monopolistic practices as it relates to the search space.
Well, all right, and I think that kind of sets the stage for us to kind of break into the secrets, because the first secret that you have, and you kind of alluded to it, to having a successful PPC campaign is to, number one, diversify the publishers that we're advertising on. So can you break that down for us a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned, with that consistent cost inflation at Google that we're seeing, it's super important to have a publisher diversification plan in place. So basically, as Google cost continues to rise, the advertisers that are operating on that platform, again, get that cost passed down to them. So if you have all of your eggs in the Google basket, 100% of your ad spend towards Google ads, and that cost is consistently rising, you put yourself in a really tough position. So one thing that we've been promoting heavily here in the States, and is also relevant nationwide, especially with a lot of the recent sort of litigation going on and uncertainty around Google's, again, monopolistic practices, is really promoting some additional search publishers that are driving a lot of value alongside Google. So this example here is showing Bing or Microsoft advertising, where you can see a pretty clear divide between the CPCs that you're going to get from Bing and comparing that to Google. And we have other charts as well that are more lead specific. So CPLs follow the same trend, but again, super important to really avoid the situation where all of your eggs are in the Google basket in case we do see that continued rise. And then one of the biggest pieces of pushback that we get from our services folks at LOCALiQ here, our sellers and ultimately end advertisers, is that when you're comparing Google with other publishers like Microsoft or Bing, the quality of that lead typically comes into question. So they may say, yeah, we might get some cheaper clicks or cheaper leads, but are we going to get the same value out of those leads that are going to be driven? And so we've actually run several studies recently here at LOCALiQ where we'll use our lead AI call scoring data, which essentially will take every lead that comes in. It'll the AI prompt will read the transcript of that call, and then it will assign a value based on the outcome of that conversation. So it's a really good piece of insight that gives us sort of that apples to apples quality view into leads that have been delivered. And so what we've seen when we're running this comparison across Google and Bing is that the call quality has been almost identical. So this is showing percentage of good calls, which again is taking into account the calls that have the highest determined value by that lead AI prompt, and comparing that with the overall population of calls that have been delivered. And we've seen, again, consistent lower costs from Bing and rivaled quality as well, which has really created a lot of reassurance with our teams to diversify even further into Bing.
Yeah, I mean that's really reassuring, especially for those who may be apprehensive about moving away from Google. So would you say that this data helps overcome the objections that a lot of clients typically have?
For sure. Yeah. So in the past, again, we've heard those objections based on past performance issues or even anecdotal evidence based on things that happened in 2022 or 2023. But I would say with these recent improvements that we're seeing from Bing as it relates to both kind of quantity of leads and quality have definitely helped kind of solidify the need for diversifying ad spend. So it's really no longer just about the cost savings, but we can also rest assured that we're going to see similar quality across other publishers outside of Google.
That makes sense. And we've got a webinar that we did, a Microsoft Ads Masterclass that we did a few weeks ago that featured some experts from Microsoft Advertising. So I want to encourage everyone, once you get the slides, or if you want to watch it immediately after, you could just go to our website and go to the webinar section. But when you get the slides, you can click through and watch this webinar that we have available on demand. And we talk about everything that's new in the Microsoft advertising space. Like Jake mentioned, when you advertise on their platform, it's not just advertising on Bing, the search engine. There are a lot of other websites and properties within that space as well. And they are a partner with us here at LOCALiQ. So and we've got quite a few LOCALiQ clients on board on this webinar. So when you advertise with us, we'll not only implement your paid search strategies on Google, but we also work with Microsoft Advertising in all of the channels within their platform as well. So that's a really great resource, especially if you want to know about some of those new features that Microsoft Bing is implementing, especially with their partnerships with like OpenAI when it comes to AI integrating into search. So a great resource there. And, I think, when you're talking about creating a successful PPC campaign, the first part is selecting your platform or your publisher, understanding like where you want to advertise. And then the next step is building your campaign out. And the first big question when you start to build out your campaign is like, who do you want to target? What's the objective, and what's your business trying to reach and achieve? Is that right, Jake?
Exactly. So when you're creating a campaign, the platform will essentially ask you who your target audience is and what the objectives of that campaign are going to be. So that leads directly into sort of the next phase of campaign setup. Yeah, and so the next step here is really specific to targeting. So we have a couple of different recommendations here, just to really make sure that you're setting your campaigns up from success from from day one.
And I know you're going to go into it a little bit more, Jake, but just again, another resource to share here for those who are going to watch this back on demand or replay it. There's a resource on our website that talks about how to set up like location targeting in Google Ads. It's a really in-depth guide. So if you need to go a little bit deeper than what Jake is about to cover on the next slide or two, then you've got that resource just as a helpful hand there.
Yeah, and I'll say too, just to kind of cover what we have on the screen here, if you want to just go back real quick, Brandon.
Sure.
So the key to start, or the key to get everything started here is by segmenting your audience. So ultimately, you want to figure out really, are you trying to target existing customer base, or are you trying to really engage some additional customer base? And so I think that's super important to really understand the type of customer that you're trying to get in the door. And then ultimately, if you're from a geographic perspective, if you're really trying to drive more business from a particular area, so that could be knowing where your customers already live and really hyper focusing on those areas, or say you're trying to tap into to a new market and kind of prospect some additional customers that way. That's a really important thing to understand up front as well. And then ultimately, you can kind of create boundaries as well. So say you don't want to target a specific subset of people, there are a lot of tools available through Google Ads and Microsoft Ads to make sure that you're not hitting those people with sort of wasted ad spend. So once you've really identified this target audience, the next step would be to kind of configure the back-end settings to either tap into that existing customer base or ultimately expand into new areas. And this is really where the campaign will start to take shape. And again, understanding these settings up front can really bode well down the line once everything's up and running.
That makes sense.
All right, so now moving into the next few slides. So we'll dig into a few different key points on each of these and provide some examples as well. So this slide really focuses on that audience segmentation piece that I mentioned. So are you targeting existing customers, or are you prospecting to really try to find some new ones? And depending on the goal, you can create very specific audience subsets or audience segments. And I provided some guidance on the right-hand side here that you can see. So you can kind of navigate within Google Ads. There's a very similar feature, again, within Microsoft Ads. But if you're targeting new customers, so you can update or upload your existing customer list, and then you can actually actively exclude those customers from seeing your ads. So again, you're making sure that you're not wasting ad spend on people that you already have in the door. You're really trying to prospect and bring some new customers into your business. And then on the flip side, if you're really focused on kind of that loyalty piece, or say you're a service business and you're trying to get those repeat customers down the line, you can upload that same list and you can actually use that to bid higher for those types of people. So again, it's kind of understanding that segment and bidding accordingly is super important. And then this next slide here is sort of similar in nature, but it's focused more so on the geographic from a targeting perspective. So whether you're trying to appeal to kind of existing high traffic areas, or again, prospect expand into new categories or new regions, Google and Microsoft will allow you to target specific zip codes, neighborhoods, boroughs, really however granular you want to get. There are several targeting options available to appeal to those specific areas that you want to touch on. And then on the next slide here, we'll dig into excluding certain areas. So as I mentioned before, say you have a very specific service area that you can deliver ads to. We see this a lot with service businesses that have sort of the franchise model, is you have a specific set of postal codes or neighborhoods, and you really want to target those areas, but you can't really serve outside of that. So you can set exclusions in Google or Microsoft to really make sure that ads aren't serving to people that are physically located in those areas. And again, this really just helps kind of streamline costs and make sure that your dollars are going where you want your customers to come from.
Absolutely. I think we did a webinar once before that talked about, how to have a successful campaign while you're on a budget. And so, if you don't have a whole lot of financial resource, this is definitely a place to look at to see where you can be more strategic, and that's in your targeting. And if you're working with the LOCALiQ expert, we've got special tools here to where if you provide the LOCALiQ expert that you're working with just some initial data, like the postcodes of your best customers or your most recent customers, we can take that to then do a geographical profiling and generate some information that will be helpful for you as a business to know where you potentially should be targeting your efforts. So if you want more information about that, again, just reach out to one of your LOCALiQ experts and then ask them about that targeting technology that we have available, to where if you just provide a little bit of information about who your best customers are or your recent customers, then we could do some profiling in terms of like where you should be targeting your ads. So a good resource there. And then next, with secret number 2, we shift to ensuring that your campaigns are set up for success by using targeted keyword lists based on, again, actual data. And Jake, what do we need to know here?
Yeah, so rather than really relying on assumptions about your customers might be searching for, we focus on using free tools, for instance, as I'll get into on the next slide, Google's Keyword Planner, to really help try to find that right balance between search volume, competition, and intent. So we're really aiming for keywords that have that sufficient search volume, meaning people are actually typing and searching for those types of keywords, aren't oversaturated, so meaning that the competition level isn't sky high, and then ultimately reflect high intent, which I'll get into in a couple slides here as well. This is really the key to driving valuable conversions at the lowest possible cost, as opposed to just generating clicks or people that might still be in sort of that research phase and are less likely to convert in the short term. And so this is an example of that keyword planner. So this is the Google Keyword Planner. Microsoft has something very similar if you're interested in launching a campaign on that platform. But as Brandon said, you don't need an exhaustive list of keywords really to get rolling. So all you need is your domain, so your website, and maybe a couple of key focus areas. So just to kind of guide the tool in the right direction. And then the tool will generate a pretty comprehensive list of keyword options for you to go through and review. And then you can really select the ones that are, again, kind of falling within that high intent category, but obviously relevant to the business and the service or product that you're trying to promote. And then this graphic is an insightful graphic that really shows that keyword intent piece that I talked about a couple of slides ago. So these give some good examples of what types of searches fall under different keyword intent categories. So for instance, early on in this sort of the intent game, you'll see a lot of how, why, what tutorial type searches, which are valuable for kind of that brand awareness or solution awareness, but it's not always necessarily going to result in a one-to-one direct conversion or lead from there. And then as you get sort of warmer, then you'll start to see things like with sort of best, review, compare. So that's where they're really looking at the competition. They're stacking up your services or your product with that competition. And then you start to reach more of the transactional type terms. So, buy, cheap, affordable. And then from there, it's really just a sort of brand search. If they are both problem aware, solution aware, and brand aware, then you really have them in a great spot, and they're ultimately ready or most likely to convert at that point. So you want to try to find a key balance of these different phases, and ultimately lean a little heavier into more of the transactional type keywords or lower funnel type keywords if you're looking to drive conversions.
That makes sense. And Jake, for our audience, we've got, again, a resource for this as well on our website. The blog is called What is Search Intent? And we give a complete guide, and it digs into the different types of keywords as you just described, as well as some really good examples there. Again, another great area to look at when you're building out your PPC campaign and you're trying to be more strategic are the keywords, as well as trying to hone in on like which stage of the buyer's journey are the users that you're attracting, right? Because that'll make sense, and that'll impact the conversions that you're seeing on your website as well. Now, yeah, once your keyword list is set, another critical factor for campaign success is ensuring that after appealing to high intent searches and serving those ads to the right audience, the businesses want to make sure that you're providing a strong landing page experience, because if the landing page experience is subpar, the likelihood of them converting from a visitor into a customer, that drops significantly. Is that what you see, Jake?
Exactly, and this is a component of the search engine marketing advertising that is often overlooked. So I think this is a super important piece to dig into. So this section offers some pretty good insights on really how to try to optimize your landing page for action, right? So we see a lot of landing pages that might be visually appealing, but the infrastructure is just not there. And so when people are trying to reach out to the business, they're having trouble doing so. So the chart, or the kind of the graphic on the right-hand side, gives you a solid reference on how you should sort of organize the different elements that appear on your landing page. So it's very important that you have things like a phone number, contact form, your offer, whatever you're trying to promote, and clear call to action very prominently on the page. Another piece that is crucial is having some sort of social proof. So this could be in the form of a testimonial, a review, and really having that front and center can give your potential customers a little bit of peace of mind that this is a credible business. They're willing to provide the service that I'm looking for, and do so at a high value. And even though this is kind of a simple chart here, I think it is powerful, and it can help businesses really make impactful updates to existing landing pages to really help boost conversions and conversion rate over time.
Yeah, that's good. And then we've got this tool here too.
Yeah, so this slide really highlights the importance of making sure that your website is responsive. And when we say responsive, we basically mean if somebody's on a desktop and if somebody's on a tablet or mobile, we want them to have the same positive experience, especially since mobile nowadays, depending on your service or your solution, makes up a lion's share of the overall traffic. So you can see both the desktop and mobile versions of this car repair service site. So the look and feel are consistent across the devices, and most importantly, the key action points are easily accessible on both. So whether the visitor is on desktop or mobile, they can pretty quickly take action if they're ready to sort of pull the trigger and reach out to the business.
Yep. And then we've also have a free website grader tool. I'll put the link to it in the chat right now for the audience. Because if you go to our website and you just put in your website address, it'll give you an audit of your website in terms of its build, the social presence. It'll take a look at what you've got out there in terms of Google business profiles. And so it gives you a score so you can see how your website fares in some of those areas like Jake just mentioned, specifically like making sure your website is easy to navigate and mobile friendly. So this is one of the free reports that I would encourage everyone to do today. And then we're going to share another one towards the end of the webinar as well. But those are good resources so that way you can begin to get some actionable insights as to how your business can improve that whole landing page experience, right? Because getting them to click on your paid search ad is it's half the battle. And then the other half of the battle is once they get to your website, are they really taking the actions that you're wanting them to do, whether it's subscribing to a newsletter or actually making a purchase, right? Whatever that call to action that you have set for your business. The next secret number 5, is bidding with your objective in mind. So once you've covered keyword setup, keyword research, and understanding your audience, the next logical step in configuring your campaign is taking a look at your bidding strategy. And you want to make sure you look at that based on what it is that your business is striving to achieve. So Jake, can you break down a few of the bidding options that are available?
For sure, yeah. So we'll go into some of the options and give some recommendations depending on sort of your goals or objectives. So you see a breakout between manual bidding and smart bidding, which is kind of the Google's automated bidding strategy. Microsoft again has something very similar. So manual bidding is one approach where you're basically setting a CPC goal or max bid on specific keywords. So in this particular bid strategy option, this is ideal when you're focused on things like driving traffic and maximizing clicks at the lowest possible cost per click. So key metrics here, if you're looking at assessing success down the line, are things like click-through rate, cost per click. So really, how much am I paying for this click or for this traffic that's being delivered to my website? Now, on the other hand, if you have more of a lower funnel goal, such as lead generation, conversions, purchases, whatever it might be, you can use smart bidding or similar conversion-based optimization on platforms like Microsoft Ads. So with this method, instead of specifically setting a max bid on a keyword or a CPC goal, you can set a CPA, cost per acquisition, or return on ad spend target, and then really to create that campaign to ultimately drive everything towards finding the clicks that are most likely to result in a conversion. So for instance, if you want to say generate leads for no more than 100 pounds per lead, you can set that target, and then the campaign would automatically optimize to really get you the most conversions at the best value within that budget. So generally understanding the difference between these different bidding models and being aware of these options are super important for aligning that campaign up front with your objective in mind. And then on this next slide, we have sort of a breakdown between the pros and cons of these different bid strategies, manual versus automated. With manual bidding, the summary here is that you have a little bit more control, right? So for instance, if you notice that your CPCs are starting to skyrocket, which I will say is common with Google Ads, you can kind of step in and take some preventative measures. So you can lower your bids, you can adjust your ad copy, keyword relevance, make sure that you're not overpaying for clicks. Whereas with automated bidding, you do kind of lose some of that control. So you can't directly set bids for specific keywords or even specific areas, which can kind of feel like a little bit of a black box at times, especially if you're used to having that control with manual CPC. The publisher like Google or like Microsoft really takes over and decides what the best bid for that particular keyword will be to result or have the highest likelihood of resulting in a conversion. So the key difference is that with manual bidding, you'll sort of need to get in there and make some ongoing optimization. So it is a little bit more hands-on. So if you're not bidding high enough, you may have to go in there and raise your bids to stay competitive with relevant searches that are coming through. And then comparing that with the automated bid strategy, that kind of handles it for you. So since it is automated, if we find that we're not bidding enough, then the automation can go in and bump our bids up. So it does take a little less control and more of a hands-off approach. But as I mentioned before, that also means less control over really what you're paying for that click or for that traffic. So again, very rough illustration here, but I think this helps showcase the differences for anybody who might be new to campaign management or really unsure whether to kind of have that manual or automated approach up front.
Yeah, good insight there, Jake. And just again, a reference point for everyone when you watch this playback or you go to the slides. Again, on our website, we've got a webinar around the same topic, which talks about how you can master SEO and PPC campaign budgets. And so we talk about some of the pitfalls to avoid, just as Jake just mentioned, as well as resources that you'll have at your disposal when you're working with a partner like LOCALiQ. Hey, Jake, we've got about 5 minutes in, so we're probably going to go and speed through secrets 6 and 7, but just let everyone know that you will receive this recording and you'll be able to have the slides to be able to go through it at your own pace. And then if you have any questions, go ahead and send your questions through because we've got some individuals in the background who are helping to answer those questions just in case we don't get to a Q&A segment in today's session. So number 6 is talking about utilizing responsive search ads. Jake, what do we need to know there?
Yeah, so I really boiled this down to 3 main points to try to keep it simple here. So the first point is really understand and know your audience, so the person that you're trying to hit. So similar to what we discussed earlier, really understanding your audience at the most granular level can make it easier to really craft those messages and speak directly to those people, kind of cutting through the noise of competitors and addressing their specific needs. The next is to really showcase why you're different. What's your unique selling proposition? For instance, as you'll see late in a couple of slides from now, I used a flower shop that offered a 4-hour delivery, which really helped them stand out from the competitors, which were all offering same-day delivery. So we'll get into that in a second. Finally, really using pinning to your advantage within your ad copy. So pinning is basically a feature that allows you to lock specific headlines into certain positions within your ad copy, rather than letting them run 100% dynamically. So gives you a little bit more control and you can do some enhanced testing. And when you're considering your targeting, really try to think about the type of appeal that you want to create and the tone of the conversation. So included some examples on the right-hand side here, but this is just showing who the desired audience is in this case. So again, this is the flowers example, which I'll get into in a few, but where they're really trying to target people that are price conscious, don't have a lot of time to research and are looking for kind of a last minute gift. And so from there, understanding that persona that they're trying to hit, they can then kind of structure their appeal, tone, and positioning to really make sure that they're catering everything 100% towards that ideal audience. All right, and then the next few slides we'll kind of build up to where I'll showcase this actual ad in action. For now, these steps outline how to really construct that ad on the front end, which gives some a general template for the type of ad copy for you guys to include. So here we want to focus on what we want to highlight in the ad, just to make sure that it flows well and ultimately stands out when it appears. So you can kind of see a general template that I've used in the past to really help you structure that ad copy and make sure that your value proposition is getting properly showcased.
Yeah, this will be a good one too to kind of use as a worksheet for yourself as you're looking back at this webinar and looking to implement certain aspects of it. And yeah, here's that example you were talking about, I think.
Yep. Yeah, so this is the 1-800-Flowers example. So you can see on the right-hand side how this ad stands out from the competition, and not even just being in the first position. Typically, the position isn't the best indicator of generating a conversion. But if you look at the headlines, again, last-minute flowers, same-day delivery, and then 1-800-Flowers is standing out really with that fast 4-hour flower delivery. So kind of showcasing the differentiator there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then secret number 7, you mentioned to put your assets to use. So what assets do we have when it comes to paid search?
Yeah, so similar to responsive search ads, assets, which are formerly known as ad extensions, they serve as kind of the supplement to enhance your ads. So this is a pretty good visual comparison. So one ad has a fair share of assets and one does not. So this really helps show the difference between the two and how you can allow your ad to really stand out beyond just the headlines and descriptions. And so this is just highlighting, again, the differences between those two ads. So the first ad that we have circled up top, this has business name and logo. It has an image extension or image asset, location, phone, hours of operation, whereas ad number 2, really just the headline, the description, and not really else much pinned to that. So you can kind of clearly see the difference between the two.
Got it. And here are, again, some additional resources that, again, you can use that we've got available on our website, including 5 examples of effective paid search advertising campaigns and some sample text ads that you can take some inspiration from your business, and then how to run a successful search campaign for your business. We've got a good detailed guide on our website as well. Again, you could click through these once you receive the slides. And as a quick, just a quick cheat sheet, if you will, here's a summary of everything that Jake gave us insight into, from the importance of advertising across different publishers to how you can leverage the information and the data that you have already with your business to make sure that your targeting is set up properly and enhanced. You can use free tools like Google Keywords Planner to help implement good campaign setup type criteria and hygiene there. You want to make sure that your landing pages are mobile friendly as well as optimized as much as possible, because you want to have that seamless user experience, because that's going to reduce the friction that they have to convert from a visitor to becoming a customer to your business. Setting bid strategy, we talked about responsive search ads, and then making sure that you have all of the assets turned on your search ad when you go live. So making sure that you have those bits like your address and other USPs and value propositions very front facing and forward, so that customers can see it while they're searching. That's going to help improve the likeliness of them clicking on your paid search ad and then coming to your business's website. So a lot there. Jake, thank you very much for jumping on from across the pond to share these insider secrets, really they are, from LOCALiQ experts themselves. So again, here's what we covered today. I mean, we talked about the current state of search and some of the practices that are happening right now, especially among Google and what we're seeing also with Microsoft Bing and such. And we talked about why it's important to make sure that your business has a representation across these types of publishers. And then Jake gave us a peek behind the curtain, if you will, about these 7 secrets and pieces of ingredients that we can use in our paid search campaigns for our business. There's been a lot of great conversation in the chat, and I believe we got to just about all the questions. So I want to be mindful and respectful of time. If there were questions that we weren't able to answer, when you click out of today's webinar, just select that you'd like to speak to a LOCALiQ expert, and we'll be able to make sure that we answer all of your questions on a one-to-one basis. And I've also shared a couple of links throughout today's webinar that will allow you to get a free website grader report for your website, as well as an audit for your website as it relates to SEO, which complements your paid search strategy very well too. So I want to encourage you to take that as a takeaway to complete those 2 action items for yourself and get some helpful ideas as to where you and your business could start in terms of implementing a paid search strategy, as well as identifying areas of improvement. So Jake, thank you very much for taking the time to join us on today's webinar. I see it in the chat. A lot of people took a lot of insight away from our conversation today, and even a few people are going to watch the replay so that they can take even deeper notes. So thank you, Jake, and hope you'll join us again in the future.
No problem. Thanks everyone for having me.
Cool. All right, and thanks everybody for joining us, and we hope to see you on another LOCALiQ webinar in the future. See you soon.